You know, Saul Bellow has a remark, a writer is a reader moved to emulation. And I had one probably helpful, liberating element, which was also my greatest drawback, which is that I wasn't a reader. I had read pretty much. I mean, I read growing up, but I didn't read carefully or with any awareness of what a writer was doing or why things might have been done or what choices might have been made along the way. But I had actually started trying to write, and the problem was that I would be influenced by whatever I read immediately. So, you know, if I were reading Hunter Thompson, which I actually did, I sounded like Hunter Thompson. And then if I read Faulkner after that, I sounded like Faulkner. But what really turned the corner for me, I mean, I sort of flailed for a year and a half, 2 years. And then I encountered the work of a writer named Joseph Mitchell, who was the great artist reporter of the 20th century, and had been a staff writer at the New Yorker from about 1938 to maybe until he died, which would have been sometime in the 21st century, or maybe 1995, something like that. Very clear style, very succinct, very compressed, it was not an intimidating style. You could read it. It didn't. I, like a lot of writers of my age or age, loved Hemingway. Certain parts of it. I mean, certain parts, of course, are I don't want to say clownish, but in the context of Hemingway, maybe compared to his best work, seem clownish, but the great short stories but the problem is their succinctness and their acuity is not really reproducible. You just sound like Hemingway, and too many eccentric choices are involved in arriving at that kind of geometry, literary geometry. But Mitchell was profoundly drawn to the characters and natures of people. And for whatever, if I have any talent as a writer, it's having been influenced somehow by my bringing up to be deeply sensitive to the lives of other people. Sometimes even unhappily so. I mean, it's what happens when you grow up. My mother was an alcoholic, and when you grow up in an alcoholic household, you're always looking around for what disaster can happen next. So you're prepared by life you're given an extra sensitivity by means of your experience. I don't mean that I have any particular intuitive or interior reserve of sensitivity that someone else would lack, but I mean I was prepared by the ground of my upbringing to be very alert. And so Mitchell's writing appealed to me terrifically. He wrote a great deal about the harbor of New York City in the sort of late 30s, early 40s, the fishmongers, the sea captains, and things like that. And I had been living on Cape Cod, and so I had thought, well, this is great. I'm going to move. Even before encountering Mitchell, I thought I'm going to move to New York City and write about Cape Cod as if it were in New York City. So I'll find, there must be fishing boats, there must be harbor. Discovered Mitchell had done it well before me. But in any case, it really gave me a model that was not intimidating and that seemed to fit the circumstances of my own sensibility so that I could really imitate it. And, my second book is a book about Mitchell's from North Carolina. My second book is a kind of biographical portrait of a revenue agent in North Carolina, a kind of a con man, reverse con man, who would go out and work undercover to catch liquor sellers and bootleggers. And it's a very Mitchell-like portrait. It's almost tracing of a Mitchell kind of piece. And, gradually you absorb. There's a great... when I was in college, I had an advisor, strangely enough, named Jimmy Garrison, who was the bass player for the John Coltrane Quartet, which, in the minds of many people, is maybe the greatest jazz band of all time, quartet. And he used to say, it was somebody else's saying, but it works for all art disciplines. He said, first you have to learn all about music, then you have to learn all about your horn, then you have to forget it all and learn how to play. So at a certain moment, I reached the point where I had absorbed Mitchell so thoroughly that it begins to recede. It becomes an influence rather than a plan, a model. So that was where I really got started, and then of course I got involved with William Maxwell, and that was, what really taught me to be a writer.